He was 21. Across the net stood the two best players in the world, and the man beside him, his own partner, had picked somebody else a year before. Everything they had left came down to the next few minutes. His name is Leo Augsburger. If you have never heard it, that is more or less the point of this story. He comes from Posadas, a river city in the north of Argentina, closer to Paraguay than to Buenos Aires, a long way from where paddle careers usually begin. He is tall for the sport, he plays the backhand side, and he hits the ball harder than almost anyone his age. The best players alive have openly called him a problem. And then, when it actually counted, those same players kept choosing to partner somebody else. Augsburger himself has said, out loud, with a straight face, that he plans to be number one, not a wish, a schedule. To understand why that sentence is not just noise, you have to go back before any of the big names knew who he was. Augsburger came up the way a lot of Argentine players do. Club courts, a long way from the money, with a partner his own age. That partner was Valentino Libaak, and for a while the two of them were the most interesting young pair in the sport. They were teenagers, and they were beating grown men. At the Mexico Open, they knocked out Federico Chingotto and Paquito Navarro, then Stupaczuk and Nenno, the pair everyone called the Super Pipes. They won a title in Rotterdam. People reached for the word prodigy. Hold on to that word because the sport was about to hand him something much larger than a good tournament. But the rise was never a straight line, and 2024 is the proof. That spring, the future world champion was ranked somewhere around number 87 in the world. He and Libaak were still walking out for qualifying rounds, playing the early matches on the outside courts while the seeded names slept in. That is where his year began. It did not stay there. And here's where it gets interesting. Late in 2024, Argentina flew to Doha to defend the world title. This is the national team event, country against country, the 1 week a year when paddle stops being about pairs and starts being about flags. The final came down to Argentina against Spain, and reportedly it ran the better part of 11 hours. The series was level. It all came down to a third and deciding match. And the coaches, with a world title sitting on the table, did not send out their veterans. They sent out two kids, Augsburger and Libaak. Augsburger has said the coach told him something very simple beforehand. If I put you in, you have to give me the point. He said he told the coach to trust him, that he would deliver it no matter what. Then he walked out against Paquito Navarro and Miguel Yanguas, two Spaniards with far more scars on their hands than he had, and he lost the first set, and he dragged the thing back to a tiebreak in the third, and he won it. Argentina were world champions again. A 20-year-old from Posadas had struck the very last ball, ranked in the 80s when the year opened, and world champion before it closed. Afterwards, he said the third point is everything, and he gave the title to his family back home. What makes it stranger is that this was his debut. He had won all three of his group matches that week, and he had not even been needed in the semifinal. So the first time the full weight of a world final landed on him, it landed on the very last point of the whole thing. That is the night the sport learned his name. Here is a question worth sitting with. Would you hand the deciding point of a world final to a 20-year-old on debut? Or would you play it safe with a veteran and sleep better that night? Argentina gambled. The gamble paid. A world title should launch a career into orbit. His did not, at least not the way you would think. And then comes the part nobody in the sport enjoys admitting. When the biggest names sit down to choose partners for the next season, it is not friendship. It is a transfer market run on cold arithmetic. Ahead of 2025, Juan Lebron, a former world number one, a genuine Spanish icon, looked hard at teaming up with Augsburger. They talked. It was close. Augsburger has since said the deal was effectively done. And then, at the last moment, Lebron went the other way. Franco Stupaczuk. On paper, Stupaczuk was the safer call. He was ranked higher, which meant better seedings and kinder early draws, and a former number one had every reason to protect that. Keep that decision in mind because it comes back later in a way nobody saw coming. Be honest with yourself for a second. If you are LeBron, protecting a ranking that took a whole career to build, do you gamble on the raw kid, or do you take the safer points? Most people take the points. LeBron took the points. So Augsburger did the only thing you can do. He kept swinging with whoever he could get. He has said the pairing he started 2025 with came together almost by accident, that Pablo Cardona was the one option still standing after another plan fell through. On paper, two young players nobody had chosen for the top tables. On court, a genuine problem for everyone above them. Across the first half of that season, Cardona and Augsburger did something no other pair managed. They beat the world's number 1, the number 2, and the number 3, all of the leading duos, inside a few months. Coello, the number 1 himself, has admitted they were a pair he came to dread precisely because their low ranking dropped them into his side of the draw early, where one bad afternoon could end his week before it had really started. What they did not have was consistency, and by the middle of the year, that partnership dissolved too. Augsburger moved on again, this time to Martin di Nenno, and that autumn the two of them won a P1 in Madrid, his first real title on the main tour, which lifted him to number 14 in the world. Real progress. And still the seat he actually wanted, a settled place beside one of the true giants at the very top, kept going to other men, so this was a strange shape of his life. Good enough to knock over the number 1s on a Tuesday. Not, apparently, the man the biggest names would commit to on the Sunday that counted. A world champion and a proven giant killer, still waiting to be chosen for the very top. And then, late in 2025, the thing that was not supposed to happen happened. The partnership Lebron had walked away from, he quietly walked back toward. His season with Stupaczuk had gone fine, and fine was the whole problem. The two dominant pairs, Tapia and Coello, Galan and Chingotto, had pulled clear of everyone, and Lebron, a man who used to own the number 1 ranking, was now on the outside looking in. So he did the exact thing he had refused to do 12 months earlier. He picked the kid. This time Augsburger said yes in public, and they did not even wait for the new season. They debuted together at the Mexico Major in November. This is the part that actually matters, so stay with me here. In April of 2026, the tour arrived in Brussels, 90,000 people through the doors across the week. Lebron and Augsburger came in seated 4th, which is a polite way of saying nobody expected them to lift the trophy. In the semifinal, they took apart Galan and Chingotto, the number 2s, 6-4 and 6-4. And in the final, they got the two men from the very start of this story, Tapia and Coello, the number 1s. The pair this channel once called the reason the top of the sport had gone quiet. They lost the first set, and they lost it badly. 2-6, and then Lebron started changing speeds, dragging Coello out of his comfort, and Augsburger started doing the thing he has always done, hitting straight through people. By one count, somewhere in the middle of that match, they won 13 points in a row against the best pair on earth. 13. They took the second set. They took the third. The kid nobody picked had just beaten both giants of the sport in a single week to win the title, and the man who had once passed him over stood next to him and told the cameras he had a phenomenon beside him. For a few weeks, it looked like the whole order might tip. Lebron climbed back to number 5 off the back of that 1 week, Augsburger right behind him, and the two dominant pairs suddenly had company they had not asked for. The top of the sport, which had gone still and predictable, had a draft blowing through it. Since that night, though, the story has refused to turn into a tidy fairy tale. Augsburger reached number 6 in the world this summer, the finest ranking of his life. But those same two pairs, the ones he toppled in Belgium, have mostly gone back to beating him. A semi-final loss in Asuncion, a final loss in Malaga, over and over, a giant on the other side of the net, and more often than not, the giant walking away with it. Brussels proved he could take them down once. It has not yet proved he can do it every week. And that gap is the only thing standing between a very good pair and a champion one. So here's the real question, and I would like an actual answer down in the comments. Is Leo Augsburger a future number 1, exactly the way he keeps promising he is? Or is he a brilliant spoiler, the man who wrecks a Giants week 2 or 3 times a season and never quite climbs onto the throne himself? Because right now, nobody can tell you for sure. He is 22 years old, he has already struck the final ball of a world championship and beaten the best pair alive with a premier paddle title on the line. Whether that turns into a reign or just a highlight reel, none of us knows yet. So go back to Brussels one more time. 21 years old, a set down, the two best players in the world staring at him from the other court, and beside him, the very man who had once decided the kid was not worth the ranking points. That is where Augsburger answered all of it at once, without saying a word. His career tells you something plain about this sport. The pairing market runs on seedings and rankings and cold math, And every so often, a player turns up who makes that math look ridiculous. If you want to meet the two men he still has to get past, watch our story on the pair that made paddle boring, Coello and Tapia. Augsburger's entire career is now an argument against them. Soon enough, we will find out if he is right.